Morbid Origin is the third full-length album from Inculter. This is a thrash metal band from Fusa, Norway, and a band that they've always been interested in Bay Area thrash metal, and I think that was a big influence getting them into metal in the first place. But there are so many ways to do that wrong that I think they kind of fit in a little bit more with the kind of the necromanthian and the blackened thrash metal side of things early on, and their first couple of records reflected that as they developed their skills and their songwriting a little bit more seriously, leading up to what I would consider a damn near perfect thrash metal record on Fatal Visions back in 2019. I was very excited about that record when it came out. I was a huge fan of the band after I heard it, and I did nothing but tout their skill and the classic feeling of that record. Now, develop your own opinions there, but they just lined up with very much with my taste, which touches upon like circa 1986 Creator and Sepultura, as well as just more aggressive thrash of a certain era, balancing that out with a very classic sound and dynamic, which was a little bit more mature than their years at the time back in 2019. Now they've had several more years to develop this album, and they put a lot into it to the point where this is maybe more indicative of where they always wanted to be in terms of quality and expression, and reaching that peak of late 80s sort of Bay Area but worldwide worthy thrash metal. And we'll cut to a clip right here just so you can hear that for yourself. So just as Necromanthian's most recent record kind of hit it out of the park in the same way that Inculter's last record did, we get the sense that they're cutting it down to the best of their riffs. But the thing that Inculter have done here is that they're not just focusing, they've mastered the riff. They can cut a riff like nobody else in terms of thrash metal today. And that's a skill that is impressive, but now it matters what they do with it. On this third record, they're writing songs, and I think that that means both some melodic chances taken and some more dramatic song craft in general, but it means more sophisticated work overall, and that means we've moved away from sort of the proto-death thrash and the blackened thrash side of things, and now we're getting what is more squarely a thrash metal album, and much more in the late 80s style. I think if you're familiar with bands like Forced Entry or Vendetta or, many others, even just Critical Defiance's 2019 record, you'll understand that there's a certain standard that people expect from a record in this style. And I won't harp on the Bay Area thing so much, but we do hear Metallica in this record throughout, and not in the cheap, kind of funny, imitative way that we get from a lot of melodic thrash metal bands today, who are quite popular, but something that's a little bit more focused on the earlier nature of the band and the way that they constructed songs which were both unique in their voicing, but also creatively put together so that they felt like experiences. And I think that's what this record gets right best, is that it creates these accessible heavy metal song pieces which are involved and experiential, but aren't quite veering into the progressive thrash metal territory. They're right up on the edge of that in some cases, but we get something closer to like Victims of Deception era Heathen, in the sense that there's a song there at the end of the tunnel. And you could look at a record like Beneath the Remains or Coma of Souls of an example of where the riffs are there with the experience and they make sense together, and there's a lot of fire behind it. And that's kind of where I would point with this record. As I mentioned, bands like Turbo and whatnot, who are the kind of the same way in creating a dramatic effect with thrash metal that focuses on the shotgun fire of riffcraft as much as it does presenting something which is kind of epic and dismal in its feeling. And I think the heaviness of this record comes not only from the emotional affect of it, but of course the sound design and how well they've gotten that this time around. So we hear the drums a little bit more clear, there's a little bit less noise overall, and the guitar sound is perfect for what they're doing. I think the commanding presence of the vocals really helped this record out quite a bit. It felt like just cutting into a great late 80s thrash metal record, and That's all I could ask for in 2013. I don't get that very often. So this is something I was very excited about, and I've sort of dug right into it and analyzed it as much as I could while still just enjoying the fact that this record hit. For me, this is just exactly along my taste. Now, if it were up to me, I'd probably just give this the 100 out of 100, but I have to admit there were a couple songs on here that it felt vestigial or not that important. And I would like the bass guitar to really have more of a presence and a purpose in a lot of these songs. That is, maybe it doesn't have to be virtuosic, but maybe stands out a little bit more in terms of working its way into the mix. And I think that's always been a problem with thrash. It could easily be remedied in such a sophisticated record like this, which has such a dynamic sound to it. So those are kind of my main criticisms there. But of course, I'm entirely enthusiastic about this record. It's fantastic. I really connected with its themes, its lyrics, and just the fact that it was front to back all about riffs while still managing to write songs in every case. That's a rare thing. It's one of my favorite things that people do with heavy metal, and I remain a huge fan of this band. So check that out. It releases this Friday. And go ahead and read my review if you'd like plenty of my thoughts on why this record is great.